Welcome to the fourth video tutorial for Learning Music Theory with Logic, Max, and Finale, published by Routledge and written by Jeffrey Kidda. In this video tutorial, we'll discuss scales, chromatic intervals, and modes, and we'll touch on these topics: the major scales in all keys and their key signatures, the circle of fifths, minor scales in all keys, relative and parallel keys, the three minor scale forms, natural, melodic, and harmonic, the scale generator, minor scale natural intervals, chromatic intervals, the interval identifier, the interval quiz, and the modern modes. We can build 12 major scales using the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern, starting on successive pitches, each pitch a perfect fifth above the last in this series: C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp or G flat, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, and F. Remember, W is a whole step and H is a half step. The starting pitch becomes the tonic of that scale. Each scale's scale degrees are named in relation to the tonic. To create these scales, we use accidentals, sharps and flats. The accidentals are represented by key signatures. Each major scale has a different key signature. Key signatures appear after the clef and before the time signature. Key signatures tell you to apply sharps or flats to certain notes. When music is in a key, it uses the scale of that key predominantly and will show the key signature in every staff of music. Each new scale's tonic was a perfect fifth above the previous one, and each new key added one sharp or took away one flat as we proceeded. This pattern is called the circle of fifths. When we got to F sharp major, we respelled the F sharp to its enharmonic equivalent, G flat. From there, we continued to use flats. The circle of fifths is a good way to understand the entire set of key signatures, and can be useful in understanding certain aspects of harmony as well. As we know, there are different ways to spell pitches. D flat can also be spelled as C sharp. Therefore, C sharp major has the same notes as D flat major, but it has 7 sharps as opposed to 5 flats in the key signature. C flat major has the same notes as B major, but has 7 flats instead of 5 sharps. These enharmonic versions of the scales, C sharp and C flat major, are less common. Minor scales in all keys. In addition to major scales, we have minor scales. The minor scale has 3 forms, but we'll start with the natural minor. The pattern for the natural minor scale, starting on the tonic note, is whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. We will build natural minor scales with this sequence of starting pitches, ascending again by perfect fifths: A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp or E flat, B flat, F, C, G, and D. Once again, when we got to D sharp, we switched over to flats, creating an E flat minor scale and continuing with flats. the circle of fifths with major and minor keys combined. Each major key shares a key signature with a minor key. These major and minor keys are called relative pairs. C major is the relative major of A minor. To the right, we see all 12 relative pairs of major and minor keys around the circle of fifths. Relative pairs are a minor third interval apart from one another. In addition to the relative major and minor pairs, major and minor keys that share the same tonic are called parallel. C major is the parallel major to C minor. The minor scale has three forms: natural, melodic, and harmonic. The natural minor pattern is, as we have seen, whole half, whole whole half, whole whole. The melodic minor pattern in the ascending form is whole half, whole 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 half, and in the descending portion, whole whole half, whole whole half, whole. The harmonic minor form has the following pattern: whole half, whole whole half, a whole plus a half, and then half. Note that the whole plus a half interval is an augmented second, one semitone larger than a whole step or major second. The three forms of the minor scale built on C are shown below. We can use the scale generator to output any major scale or any of the three minor scale forms on any pitch on the keyboard. We can record the MIDI output in Logic by sending the MIDI out via the Note Out object on the screen to From Scale Generator and record it in Logic. In Finale, we can create any scale from the C major scale by using key signature. First, copy and paste the C major scale into new measures. Second, select the measures. Third, change the key with key signature, setting transpose notes to up or down. The minor key setting will produce a natural minor scale. Next, we'll see this process where we take a C major scale, we transpose it to a G major scale, and then we turn it into a C natural minor scale. The first thing that we do is we select the first two measures that have the C major scale and we drag them to empty measures. Then we select those two measures and choose the key signature tool and click on the selected measures, and in the key signature tool we change the key signature from C major to G major and we apply, and now we have a G major scale. Then we go back to the first two measures and drag it to two empty measures, once again selecting those measures and then choosing the key signature tool. And now we change the key signature from no sharps or flats to 3 flats, but we also change the mode from major to minor, and this allows us to go from C major to C minor. The natural intervals for minor scale forms. These are the natural intervals for the minor scale forms, from the tonic to successive scale degrees. Note that the minor scale forms alter the 6th and 7th scale degrees between the natural minor and the major scale forms. Chromatic intervals. Chromatic scales have 12 pitches, and each pitch can be spelled or named in various ways. Therefore, when we pair the first note of a chromatic scale with the successive pitches, there are many possible intervals. In measure 7, we have an augmented fourth between C and F sharp, one semitone larger than a perfect fourth. We could also spell the F sharp as G flat, and it would become a diminished fifth. Another name for this interval is the tritone, which is either an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth. Identifying intervals is an important skill for musicians. We can use the interval identifier to help us learn how to play intervals using a keyboard. Play two notes that are less than or equal to an octave on an attached MIDI keyboard. Then press the button to see the notation and the names for the two possible interval identifications. With Interval Quiz, we can develop our interval identification skills further. Interval Quiz creates a no-pressure environment to develop the skill. No keeping score and no time limits. If you're not sure about an interval, just press the button again for a new interval. Modern modes. Before major and minor scales became predominant, there were other kinds of scale forms called modes. We'll just note this rich area of music history and simply identify the modern forms of the modes. Notice the Ionian mode is the same as the major scale, and the Aeolian mode is the same as the natural minor scale. Also, the Dorian mode provides a fourth version of the minor scale, this time with a raised 6th and lowered 7th scale degrees. The major and minor scales have been the predominant basis for tonal music, but we can nevertheless hear the use of modes throughout music history as well. By the way, the reason these Greek names were given to the modes is not known. We can use key signatures to change the mode of any music. Notice that we can apply different key signatures to the notes of the C major scale to create the modes. For instance, the C major scale becomes the C Mixolydian mode by applying the key signature of F, or 1 flat. The C major scale becomes the C Dorian mode by applying the key signature of B flat, or 2 flats, etc. We can also create the Lydian and the Phrygian and the Locrian mode.